Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Moment That Defines Your Life, integrating emotional intelligence and Stoicism when your life, career, and family are on the line. By Chuck Garcia, narrated by Chuck Garcia. Limit of liability, disclaimer of warranty. Although every effort has been made to ensure that the personal and professional advice present within this book is useful and appropriate, the author and publisher do not assume and hereby disclaim any liability to any person, business, or organization choosing to employ the guidance offered in this book. The Moment That Defines Your Life is dedicated to Eric Skopek, my debate professor at Syracuse University. His course and extraordinary teaching style had more impact on me than any other in 20 years of formal education. No subject matter helped me better bridge the gap between college and career than his. I subsequently tried my best every day to live up to the exceptional communication standards he inspired inside and outside the classroom. Forward. You selected a book about the moments that define you when your career, family, and life are on the line. I faced such a defining moment a few years ago, which I could not have come through without the immeasurable patience and guidance of this book's author, Chuck Garcia. Had I not met Chuck when I did, not only would I have lost everything, but I would also have seen everything as lost, and those are very different things. Loss is inevitable. How we see it is a choice. Shortly after turning 50, I was trapped, my view at the time, in the simultaneous collapse of both my 25-year career as a screenwriter and my 10-year marriage. As I spiraled into feelings of failure, a friend suggested I speak with Chuck. What I skeptically projected would be a short phone call turned out to be a crossroads. Chuck was embarking on an adventure of his own at the time, taking his A Climb to the Top coaching brand up a new mountain, literally shooting a TV pilot in which he would guide 4 people facing defining moments in their lives to summit the 5,114 feet of Algonquin Peak in upstate New York's Adirondack Mountains. Hearing how I was facing the upheaval of my entire world, Chuck invited me to be one of the cast members. I had spent my film career behind the camera, so the idea of being in front of one was uncomfortable. But I also knew that this invitation was not one to brush off flippantly with the excuse of too much going on. So, 2 months later, I found myself on a mountain trail with Chuck and his hard-working young crew, beset by unexpected rain that had us hours behind on the climb. Filming a check-in, I expressed my pain at how divorce might affect my 6-year-old daughter and 2-year-old twins, and my doubts about whether I could even muster the kind of energy needed to build a new career from scratch at an age when many of my friends were looking toward retirement. Chuck saw what I was too afraid to look at, and that I had given up. Buckled down for the storm of my life to pass, hoping for calm at the other end, so that I could then find the strength to go on. It was in that moment, on that mountain, while trudging through actual rain and mud, that I realized it is not in the calm at the end of life's trials and challenges that we determine our paths. If you're just waiting for the storm to pass, your chance to choose your path through it passes with it, and you wind up wherever the storm will take you. Our defining moments are found within the storm. They swirl around us in waves and froth and lightning and rain, challenging us to find within ourselves not only the ability to recognize the moment for what it is, but the strength to define ourselves within it, to choose our own path through rather than let the storm choose for us. While my career, family, and life were certainly on the line, Chuck reminded me that as we venture into the world each day, our careers, families, and lives are always on the line. That we have a choice in each of those moments to go blindly through life, hoping that tragedy never finds us, or finds us unprepared when it inevitably does, or that we can open our eyes and face it. He opened my eyes, and I faced it. Chuck poured these lessons into me with wisdom and care and emotional intelligence so deeply woven into his gentle presence, into his very being, that the Stoics he so fondly and reverently honors in this book would be proud. Chuck lives the philosophy of inner peace through outer calling, self-service through the service of others, and success through the sacrifice of selfishness. I am forever humbled and grateful to be the recipient of his kind and generous example. I'm happy to say that while my career, family, and life have all changed dramatically, I neither lost nor see as lost anything that has changed. To the contrary, I have learned to embrace and even enjoy the storm as much as the calm. Thank you, Chuck, for that. It was through his coaching that I chose to also become a coach. I flew back to Los Angeles after our climb to the top show, no longer dwelling in the perceived failures of my past, but excited to create a new future for myself by helping others to create theirs. And I am fortunate to have now succeeded in both. That's what Chuck is doing with this book. You're about to be treated to many stories of the defining moments its subjects faced and the lessons they learned, too often through tragedy, through which those lessons likely could not have been learned had it not been for the tragedy. You will see yourself in some of these stories. You will see the best of humanity in all of them. By the end, you will have your eyes opened, their lids permanently propped up, scouring the storms for the defining moments that, if not looked for, can so easily pass us by, never seen or known for what they were or could have been. And when found, well, that is for each of us to discover. I found mine on a mountainside in upstate New York. Where will you find yours? Ken Goldie, Executive Coach, CEO, Breakthrough Leadership Training, author, The FAST Way, Defining and Expressing Yourself for Ultimate Success. Introduction. Not my day to die. Our greatness lies not so much in being able to remake the world, that is the myth of the atomic age, as in being able to remake ourselves. Mahatma Gandhi. On September 11th, 2001, at 8:46 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11 crashed into the North Tower of New York City's World Trade Center, killing all passengers aboard and over 1,000 people above the 91st floor. 16 minutes later, United Flight 175 smashed into the South Tower, killing everyone on the plane and hundreds more in the building. 30 minutes before these horrific attacks, 80 people were gathered at a restaurant event space called Windows of the World to participate in a conference sponsored by a London-based organization called the Risk Waters Group. Located on the 106th floor of the World Trade Center's North Tower, one could see Manhattan's sparkling skyscrapers to the north, Brooklyn's beautiful bridges to the east, and the stately Statue of Liberty to the south. By 8:30 a.m., An additional 72 restaurant staff arrived before their breakfast service to further prepare for this two-day event. Add a handful of conference delegates who had just arrived, and over 200 people were at windows when the plane struck. While planning this event in the summer of 2001, the conference producers scheduled me to speak on 9/11 at 9:20 a.m. and again on 9/12 at 11 a.m. On a follow-up call 2 months earlier to resolve a conflict with another speaker, they asked if I could move my 9/11 morning slot to 3:20 p.m. that afternoon. I was happy to accommodate the change, given another speaking engagement request I received a few days earlier. Instead of being at the World Trade Center when the plane struck that morning, I was giving a speech at the Empire Hotel in Midtown Manhattan, approximately 6 miles away. With a 9 a.m. start, I planned to finish it in 45 minutes, then take the subway downtown to spend the rest of the day at Windows on the World. I indicated a few days before the conference on a calendar entry visible to all Bloomberg employees that I had a speaking engagement at the World Trade Center on 9/11/01 and would be there until 6 p.m. I made no reference to the Empire Hotel and never thought to enter an expected arrival time at Windows on the World. During the Empire speech, I was interrupted at 9:20 a.m. by a conference producer who explained to me and the audience that a hard-to-believe but alarming incident occurred a few minutes ago at the World Trade Center. He then directed the 60 of us to a television set tuned to CNN. Stunned at what we were watching, it was unimaginable. The higher floors in both towers were burning, smoke billowing, with no words to describe our shock. I had never seen anything like this. No one said a word as we witnessed the inconceivable. Occasionally, someone let out a gasp as all eyes and ears were directed at the television set. We just stood still, unable to process what felt like a horror movie. The silence was deafening. The Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York City's financial district were ablaze without explanation. There were rumors that airplanes struck the towers, but the newscasters hesitated to commit until the reliable source confirmed it. Little did we know that within the hour, an American Airlines plane smashed into the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia, and a United Airlines jet crashed into an open field in rural Pennsylvania, killing everyone aboard. The combined death toll for all 4 incidents that day was 2,997. Disoriented at the gruesome sight of the towers burning, all anyone could do was call their families, friends, and colleagues. However, landlines and cellular phones were not working. We were amidst the deadliest terrorist attacks in American history and had no means to communicate. I was frantic to speak with my family, who knew I was ending my day at the World Trade Center, and the office to let them know I was all right. Everyone in the hotel beat their phones in frustration, desperate to communicate with their loved ones. No go. We were out of contact with the world. In addition, all transportation citywide was halted. New York City was under siege and in lockdown. The South Tower subsequently collapsed at 9:58 a.m. 30 minutes later, the North Tower crashed to the ground. Since riding the subway to the World Trade Center was not an option, I walked from the Empire Hotel to Bloomberg's headquarters at 499 Park Avenue. Unbeknownst to many, I was alive. The first colleague I met when I entered the building said, "Chuck, everyone thinks you are dead. Walk the halls and let them know you are not. They may still be shaken but relieved." I didn't know it until then, but my name was on a list that implied unaccounted for and presumed dead. Aware that my company calendar stated World Trade Center until 6, Bloomberg employees made a mental leap and concluded I was already at Windows on the World. My 3 colleagues, Bill, Peter, and Paul, had sent a text to the office after the planes hit stating they were trapped above the fire. Sadly, they perished when the North Tower collapsed. Bewildered by the day's unprecedented events, there was a feeling in the air that nothing would ever be the same. Who knew? Over the next month, I attended 16 memorial services as New Yorkers walked around the city in a fog, shell-shocked at the death and destruction. The Twin Towers, icons of the New York City skyline, were gone. It was painful to look downtown and see airspace where previously they loomed large over New York's financial district. Day after day, I wondered what force in the universe decided who lived and died that day. Never was I so perplexed by an endless string of questions on the nature of human existence. For the next several days, carrying the weight of survivor's guilt, I was a ball of confusion. One question kept burrowing in my mind that I couldn't shake. Why was this not my day to die? With a phone call and a simple twist of fate, my speaking schedule at the World Trade Center changed from morning to afternoon on September 11, 2001. Were it not for the resolution of someone else's conflict, I would have died that day. Reflecting on this turn of events, I was suddenly jolted by that moment. In Viktor Frankl's classic, Man's Search for Meaning, he states, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." Frankl's survival story at Auschwitz was running through my head every hour of every day. I couldn't shake it. The phrase, "we are challenged to change ourselves," became foundational to turning crisis into opportunity. As I reflected on the 9/11 events, I became the protagonist in my own story arc. Who could have predicted how this plot would develop? The entire litany of events, emotions, and associated feelings were swirling through my head and heart. Striving to heal emotionally became a daily routine. All anyone could talk about for weeks was where they were when the planes hit and how many friends they lost in the World Trade Center collapse. I was talked out. Nothing left to say, nowhere to turn but inward. How could this event be put into perspective? To many survivors, it either defeated or defined them. The loss of human life and the number of parents, sons, and daughters who died that day were heartbreaking. I could not dismiss this. I could only conclude that moment was meant to startle me in ways I came to understand years later. In retrospect, it changed and defined me. The entirety of the events prompted a torrent of self-discovery and actions that motivated me to become who I am today. It helped me transform in ways I never could have imagined. After the funeral services were long gone, newspaper headlines countrywide resembled these from New Yorkers affected by the 9/11 events. 20-year Lehman Brothers executive resigns to enroll in a seminary. Wall Streeter leaves million-dollar trading job to join Teach for America. Woman executive quits her prestigious banking job to establish a foundation that supports underserved communities. Survivors were in pain, soul-searching, questioning whether they should stay in the rat race or leave it behind for more fulfilling work. There were many twist of fate chronicles of survivors who were supposed to be in the World Trade Center that morning. Many stories were deeply affecting and provoked me to rethink my future. What was the universe communicating? I loved my job and continued to develop skills that led me unpredictably to become a professional speaker, executive coach, and college professor. Who said I had to change careers? Despite the 9/11 stories reported in the media, did it have to be all or nothing? Maybe waiting was the best option. See what happens to my mindset. Assess how I feel at different points along the journey. Timing is important in any job switch, much less a radical transformation. After serious contemplation, there was no doubt. My career was successful and still evolving. To work under the guidance of Mike Bloomberg was a gift beyond any value I could measure. I had no desire to alter this career. Yet, I loved my craft and represented a phenomenal organization. Who would leave that? There was no seminary, vineyard, or more purposeful mission that made sense. Perhaps I was thinking about this all wrong. After a few weeks, I set the career considerations aside. What was troubling me, and how to resolve it? Was I still feeling guilty for being alive? If so, how do I get beyond this? I eventually worked through this inner turmoil with some unwavering self-talk. You are no good to your family in a funk. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. Wake up! You're alive. Life is ephemeral. All I could think of was to not let Bill, Peter, and Paul die in vain. What to do? The mountains were calling. Was I losing myself or finding myself? When I started to climb, I didn't know the answer. While alone in my thoughts each day on the commuter train to New York City, the answer came to me in a moment of clarity. The answer to my question can only be answered in action and adventure. I felt the need to get a million miles away from home, office, and career pressures. My inclination was to read a stack of books that might help me feel better. However, I concluded that my goal was not to fill my mind. I had enough of that. Instead, the mission was to clear it. All the mountaineering books described blue skies, endless landscapes, and not many people. That was it. I decided to try it and see where it led me. On September 11th, 2002, I stood on the summit of Mount Rainier in the Cascade Range, 60 miles southeast of Seattle, Washington, as the crow flies. It seemed fitting to climb my first mountain on the 1-year anniversary of those heartbreaking World Trade Center events. With an elevation of 14,411 feet above sea level, Rainier is the highest volcanic peak in the contiguous United States. Each year, more than 10,000 people attempt to scale the mountain and use it as a training ground for bigger expeditions. I didn't know where this would lead me, but there was something cathartic about being in the snow-covered alien environment. Something had to change. By now, I stopped asking myself, why am I still alive? I did not want to let my moment of action pass only to regret it later. Something happens to people when confronted with death, setting off a chain reaction that changes people in unexpected ways. Steve Jobs said in his 2005 Stanford University commencement address, "Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. You are already naked. There is no reason not to follow your heart." Climbing a mountain is a mental, physical, and spiritual exercise. I was inspired to follow my heart wherever it led, and to let the moment of introspection guide me to do something I had never done. What did I have to lose? I wanted to honor the spirit of my lost friends and to memorialize them uniquely. I had no other thoughts on what, how, or why. I needed to make sense of the signals the world was sending me. There was a force calling, igniting me to explore what mountains lie on the other side of these 9/11 tragedies. Whether by coincidence or fate, the summer before the World Trade Center catastrophe, I read a book by John Krakauer called Into Thin Air, published in 1997. Although I had not yet climbed a mountain, I was inexplicably drawn to it. Into Thin Air recounts a series of tragic events in Nepal on Mount Everest, the world's highest mountain. Krakauer describes incidents on May 10, 1996, when 8 climbers died from the convergence and consequences of high altitude, horrific weather, and questionable judgment. From the opening paragraph, I couldn't put it down. Like most devastating incidents, heroes and villains were identified and caught in a vicious blame game. So many aspects of this story riveted me, and for better or for worse, I began to see myself climbing. The more I learned about mountaineering, the more I envisioned ascending with an ice axe in hand and crampons on both feet. As a distance runner my whole adult life, climbing had many parallels to marathoning. For starters, there was no shortcut to the finish line. Also, besides putting one foot in front of the other, I couldn't control the weather or how others on the same trail would behave. However, there was one thing under my power: how I chose to act and react to the environment. No phones or laptops. Also, the stakes were high. This was not just a hobby, but a serious pastime. People died climbing mountains. What was I thinking? Nonetheless, I was intrigued by it all. Mountaineering requires skills, fortitude, and learning to be comfortable in the discomfort of factors beyond anyone's control. One misstep, wrong turn, or slip can lead to catastrophe. Yet, the elation and sense of accomplishment by summiting a peak and reflecting on it later is indescribable. The high is unlike anything I ever felt. Completing a marathon.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?